Hello, I'm Robert Simmons. I'm speaking to you on January 18th, 2020 from New Zealand. And today I'm flying to the United States to go participate and chase rocks around at the giant gem and mineral show in Tucson, Arizona. I'll be there for about a month. And while I'm there, I'll be looking for certain stones that we'll be using in the Alchemy of Stones 2 intensive workshop that I'm offering in Vermont next June 11th through the 14th, June 11th through the 14th of 2020 in Burlington, Vermont. If you are interested in that workshop, it's going to be the doing of everything that I've written about in the new book that I just completed, The Alchemy of Stones. And that book is fresh off the laptop, and I've just sent it off to the book designer. So I'm quite excited about it. And it's been an adventure and a revelation to me to go through the alchemical process with stones myself as I wrote the book. The book is really an exploration just as much as it is a manual for other people. So that's coming up. That'll be printed in May of this year, and it'll have its debut at the Alchemy of Stones intensive workshop in June. So heavenandearthjewelry.com is the place to go to find out about both. And that's my little announcement, commercial, however you want to think about it. And now I want to talk to you about the subject that's the last chapter of the book. And in a certain way, this subject runs all through the book. The last chapter of the book is called The Redemption of the Earth, Commitment to the Impossible. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what I mean by that and why I believe that the goals of alchemy, which were very much about the commitment to achieving what other people would have called impossible things, is a real thing that actually is worth our attention and is something that we can really do. And in fact, I have a whole list of things to tell you about, to just sort of call your attention to the fact that all of us who work with stones and their energies are already doing things that are impossible from the point of view of consensus reality, the worldview that we were brought up in. So I say these kind of things in most of my videos because it's the very core of what we have to open up and unpack and undo in order to free ourselves, free our imaginations, and free our consciousness so that we can take the most possible advantage of the potentials that the stone beings are offering us and the soul of the world is offering us as well. So I want to start here and just read you a quote from one of my teachers here. Let's see if I can find it. I'm kind of stalling because I don't see it immediately. I don't know. Well, here it is. The ancient art of alchemy was chiefly concerned with changing something of seemingly little value into something precious, of transforming lead to gold, thereby creating the, quote, philosopher's stone. The stone is not a material substance, however, but is an awakened consciousness. I lost my place. But is an awakened consciousness which, though seemingly immaterial, pervades, informs, and gives rise to all creation. The philosopher's stone doesn't just redeem the individual alchemist it non-locally influences the field to such a degree that it was considered to be able to redeem the entire cosmos. Alchemy is a timeless, sacred art, as the alchemist's art is to become an instrument for the incarnating deity to make itself real in time and space. Whoa. That was by Paul Levy, who is a kind of alchemical philosopher who has a lot of things out there worth looking at and reading. But just to say a little bit about that, what he's saying is the aim of alchemy, which is, in my view, the aim we have in our work with stones, is transformation. And it's transformation of something imperfect into something unlimited. Not exactly perfect in the static sense, but without limitation. And that means freedom. That means unlimited creativity. And in our actual lives, that means the ability to achieve manifestation, direct manifestation of what we envision as our aspirations and goals. And I always stress when I talk about this that this is done co-creatively with the soul of the world, who I refer to as Sophia. And that is the ancient Greek word for wisdom. But Paul Levy is saying that alchemy is a real thing, that people can actually practice, and in so doing, they can actually transform themselves, awaken that consciousness that is potential in us, but is not yet realized, and can ultimately, through that process, redeem and transform not only ourselves but the world. And I think, one thing I think, and that I feel very deeply, is that we need to do that. The world right now is moving toward a crisis, and is in a crisis, that is potentially transformational, and it requires our participation with the whole of our being in order to bring the positive transformation that is a possibility but is not guaranteed. So that's a big picture. Now, what do I say about commitment to the impossible? What I mean is that things that we've grown up to believe don't happen in the world are already happening to us and in our lives if we are working with stone energies. In fact, the first thing on the list that's impossible is the fact that we feel stone energies at all. They're not measurable. No instrument can prove that they exist, and yet those of us who feel them know that they do. So we're already doing something, quote, impossible just by getting involved with this and holding a stone and feeling that inner tingle or that warmth or that opening up of visions in our mental consciousness, or if we're lucky, the stimulation and opening of the heart. So all those things happen just by holding stones and tuning into them. And all those things, according to the consensus reality, are impossible. And all those things and many more are what we'll be working on in the Alchemy of Stones Intensive. So another thing that's believed to be impossible that we do, and that we'll go into in depth in my intensive, is developing relationships with the stones as beings. It's a simple thing. The first thing we do when we're holding a stone is we give it our full attention in every possible way with our physical senses. We bring it to our heart then and invite it in to our heart awareness, and we meditate with the stone, and we let our imagination envision it as a being. And when I say envision, I really mean imagine, and it may not involve an image, or it can. But in doing this, we find something that's there in potential that needs our extension of our own invitation and giving our attention to it to come into our consciousness. One of the things I like to say is that the stone energy is love energy, and love will never force itself on you, or if it did, it wouldn't be love. So the stone energies will never force themselves on us, but when we invite them, they do come. And if we can let ourselves conceive of the energies we feel as the gestures and the presence of actual spiritual beings that want relationship with us, it greatly enriches what then happens when we work with the stone. And the stone, of course, is the physical embodiment of a spiritual being, just as my own body is the physical embodiment of another kind of spiritual being, and the same for your own body. So relationship is between the beings. It's not really between the physical embodiments, although what we do physically is a part of it. As we develop relationships with the stones as beings in the alchemy of stones, it leads us into relationship with the entire earth. And this is a big part of what we'll be doing at the intensive in June, is we'll be connecting with the stone beings, and then through their facilitation, we'll go deeper and we will engage with the earth as a being. And this is where the possibility of creative transformation really gets going, because the earth is a conscious entity too, I believe. And I've had the experience of the earth's consciousness relating with me. And it's not only just me, many of us have had that. Now the earth's consciousness needs our help, needs human help in order to fully manifest her potential. So through working with stones, we go deeper into relationship with the whole of the earth and help the earth come to consciousness. See, that's the thing that human beings have. We are conscious, and we're self-aware, and we're individually conscious, so we have choice. And because we have choice, that means intention, and also our choice tells us what we give our attention to and how we use our imagination creatively to help the soul of the world achieve her potential. And that is what Paul Levy, in the quote at the beginning, was talking about when he mentioned influencing the field to such a degree that it was considered able to redeem the entire cosmos. That's the goal of alchemy, and the thing that excites and animates me at this point in my life after 33 years of working with stones is the recognition that this is so much bigger than I realized for many, many years that it was, and that it is keyed right now to the crisis of humanity and the earth and our potential to act creatively to bring that crisis through to transcendence. And we're aiming straight for that in all of the teaching I do now, and in the workshop that's coming up next June especially, because we'll have 4 whole days to get together and work on that. So I mentioned the earth as a being, and the soul of the earth I use, as I said, to refer to the soul of the earth, the ancient alchemical name Sophia, which means wisdom. And if we look to the way that the world operates with such incredible innate intelligence and harmony, and things right down to the infinitesimal follow patterns of meaning, then we realize that the world has a soul made of wisdom. Not only the earth, but the whole of the universe, the cosmos, has a soul of wisdom. And the alchemists very rightly, I think, intuited that that world soul is feminine. That's why Sophia is considered a feminine name, and that's why they used it. So we will develop conscious relationship and dialogue with Sophia as we work through the stone beings in the alchemy of stones. If you get my book, I take you through step by step by step in terms of how to understand it and how to develop it, and practices that you can use to do it. And if you come to the workshop, we do all of that over the 4 days. Now, other things we do that are impossible, so to speak, in the alchemy of stones are healing, spiritual healing. Spiritual healing takes place through what I call the subtle body. And the subtle body is not what you see on camera here. It's the in-between state between physicality and pure spirit that is the dwelling place of the soul. As Novalis, one of my heroes, the poet, said, the seat of the soul is where the inner and the outer world meet. And where they overlap, the seat of the soul is in every point of that overlap. Or instead of overlap, you could call it permeation. Where the inner world and the outer world permeate each other, that's the place where soul is. And that's the dwelling area and the realm of manifestation of our subtle body. And our subtle body is a body of consciousness and meaning that is identified with our individuality. So, when we treat the subtle body, we are treating the physical body from spirit through soul into physicality. That's how healing with stones works. The stone beings are spiritual beings that manifest to relate with us in that in-between realm where our subtle body is. And they offer their energy there. What we experience as stone energy, I believe, is an experience of our subtle body, not our physical body, even though we have what we think of as physical sensations from a lot of it. We also see images that are meaningful in many cases when we are relating with a stone. And those images are in the realm of consciousness. They're not physical things. So they exist in that overlap place of the seat of the soul, which is also called the realm of the imaginal. And the creative power that we wield in the imaginal realm is imagination. Imagination is not unreal. Imagination is the making of images through intention and attention, and not just visual images, but anything we can create in our consciousness. So we meet the stone beings, they also have imagination. That's why it's co-creation, either with Sophia or with the stone beings, because our imaginations meet in that overlapping place. So I'm laying a lot out in a big rush here. I always seem to do this. I want to tell you everything in one video, and I probably am saying things I've said before, but I had to hear them a great many times before I really took them in. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you to hear them and hear me say them in different ways. But that healing we do basically means that the configuration of our subtle body is meaningfully connected to the state of our physical body. So when we are able to change and make better the configuration of our subtle body through bringing in of beneficial energies via the stones, then that flows into our physical body through the subtle body's relationship with it. Subtle body is like the pattern. It's what acupuncturists work on. It's what healers who use hands-on healing work on. It's what homeopathic remedies even work on, I think. So it's a real thing. And that's what we address directly when we do healing with stone energies. And we'll be doing a lot of that at the intensive. Now, another thing to tell you about that we do that is impossible, and that you can do that is impossible, is the transformation of your own consciousness. The achievement of the Philosopher's Stone, as Paul Levy said, is the awakening of an enlightened consciousness. And many of you have had these experiences with stones. Azeztulite and phenakite, danburite, many of the high vibration stones, even Rosophia, which works at the level of the heart, work to stimulate an expansion and an awakening of consciousness in which we transcend our old way of being. And that is the alchemy of stones. Alchemy was always a work of transcendence, of finding the limitations of the state of being one has, and finding the way beyond them to an expanded state of being. So that illuminated consciousness that redeems not only ourselves, but acts as a seed for the redemption of the universe is what we aim at when we work with the alchemy of stones. When I say commitment to the impossible in my last chapter of the book here, what am I talking about? I've talked about what we're doing that we experience regularly that other people might consider impossible. But what about this redemption of the earth? What about this transcendence of the laws of the so-called laws of reality, which Rupert Sheldrake, the biologist, would call the habits of reality? There's a thing called unconflicted behavior that my friend Joseph Chilton Pearce wrote about. And when he uses that phrase, what he means is a full 100% commitment of your whole being to one action. And that kind of behavior is able to go beyond the so-called limits of what's possible in the world. He used examples of so-called physical impossibilities that people do when they are in an unconflicted state. Again, a state in which you've poured all of yourself into one intention. Examples of this include things like fire walking, or the classic case of when a mother sees a child that's underneath an automobile and she runs up and lifts the automobile off the child, even though that's impossible for her in any other state. It just gives us the clue that when we don't engage in any doubt and when we commit ourselves utterly, the so-called limits of our reality are actually very permeable. And the very fact that when we work with stones, we're already doing so-called impossible things leads me to feel that this path of the alchemy of stones can take us into transcendence of all kinds of limitation. I don't really want to draw the line anywhere. But I'll give you an example of something that we do in the workshop. This is another kind of working with stone energies to heal or expand awareness. And this is what I call photonic layouts. A photonic layout is just like a body layout that you would do on yourself with stones. But in this case, the photonic layout is on a photograph of yourself or someone else or a pet or a piece of land or whatever you want to work on to benefit its well-being. If you work with a photograph and you place the stones with intention on the photograph, the energies of the stones act non-locally. They act on that, in that imaginal realm, or in that realm of the seat of the soul, to influence whatever it is you focused your intention on through using the picture. And by using the stones on the picture, you've called the beings of all those stones that you're working with to join you in the intention that you focused on. And we tried this at the last Alchemy of Stones workshop that we did in Vermont in 2016, and it worked amazingly well. Everybody that came to the workshop brought a photograph of themselves lying down, and we're going to do that again this year. And then we had partners, and each partner would do a stone layout on the photograph of their partner, while their partner was lying down with their eyes closed, not being able to see what was being done. And we found that doing the photonic layout was just as powerful, in some cases even more powerful for people than having the stones directly on their own body. And in the world of materialism, that's impossible. But it happened. We did it. I had a young woman at the conference who was up on stage where I was in 2016, and she didn't have a partner, so I did her layout. And I saw that she had her eyes closed, she was meditating, And right at the point where I put a tiny little piece of Rose Sophia on the heart of her photograph, she spontaneously said, "Ah, my heart just opened." And so that was proof for me that the energies of Rose Sophia went directly to her through the medium of the photograph. And the medium, of course, working with intention and imagination in the realm of subtle energies, which is what we were doing simply by placing the stones on the photograph and holding the intention for the partner's well-being. So, something new that I tried in Japan a few months ago, teaching a workshop, was to take that a step further and try to work with merging ourselves and our consciousness with that of the earth. And when I say merging, I mean developing conscious relationships so that we are able to, in a sense, converse with the soul of the world. So in this instance, we took the photograph of the person, we took the photograph of a photograph of the earth, and I had superimposed the image of human DNA on top of the image of the earth. So we made two layers. We took the human body photograph, the earth photograph, and that had the DNA superimposed on it. And we put all those together, and then we did a stone layout on that image of the earth and our DNA. And we also added in the center a little sample of our own DNA. We took a little swab and got some saliva out of our mouths, and we put that cotton ball into the little paper cup in the center of the drawing. So there are all these layers: the actual DNA, the DNA image, the earth image, and the human body image underneath. And then we called in the stone beings, and we asked for them to join us in activating the union of the human being with the earth for the good of the whole. And we did that, as I said, in Japan, where nobody knew English, but we had a translator, and she gave them the instructions. And I asked afterwards, how many people felt that, and every hand in the room went up. And also, we left that overnight so that it would bring about further energetic transformation in the person through our very DNA, because the DNA is sort of the bridge between the physical bridge between our corporeal body and our subtle body. DNA transmits light through its nucleus, and it's able to, some scientists say, it's able to hyper-communicate with all of nature. So that was kind of the premise that I started with in bringing this forward and doing this exercise. And the bottom line is it worked. Now, how deeply can it work? How far can we take it? How much can happen? How much can happen not only for us as individuals, but for the earth? This is what we'll be exploring. And a lot of that, for certain, everything I've just talked about will be a part of our group work that we do together at the Alchemy of Stones Intensive in June. Now, when we do that intensive, we'll have a lot of stones to work with. Right now, I figure that the stone bags that we will provide for everybody to work with during the event will have 40 to 60 different stones in them. And we'll be meeting and working with the beings of virtually all of those stones. So there'll be a big palette for us to create with, what do I mean to say, a big assortment of stones and energies for us to work with on every level, from protection and purification to healing, to embodying love, to ascension of the heart, to transformation of our consciousness. This is a very ambitious undertaking. the whole alchemical mission is an incredibly ambitious undertaking, and it's clearly impossible. And I believe not only is it impossible, but we must do it. And I think we can do it. And when I say it, I mean that whole thing of healing, becoming whole, awakening our own consciousness, relating with the beings of the stones and the earth's consciousness and the soul of the universe's consciousness, and developing a transcendent kind of awareness in which that relationship exists in every moment. This is the great spiritual opportunity of this time. And in my view, the crisis that's happening all around us is, in a sense, the buildup of energy to take us to the point of that potential transcendent event. And there need to be some of us who act as seeds of intention and seeds of imagination in the world's consciousness in order to bring this forward and actualize it. And I can't think of anything better for me to spend the rest of this lifetime on than in the effort to manifest these all these things that we've been told can't happen and are only, quote, in our imagination. I think it's much more than that. And I invite you, I very, very enthusiastically and from a heartfelt place invite you, if you're moved by any of these ideas and if you're moved by the stones, to join us in Vermont, June 11th through 14th of 2020. Go to heavenandearthjewelry.com. Their phone number is 800-942-9423 or 802-476-4775. And just get in touch with them if you want information about this or if you'd like to be a part of it. Now, the other thing I'll say is, as I said, tonight I fly to the USA and I'll be at the Tucson Gem Show from about January 25th to February 15th. We'll be at the Motel 6, 1010 South Freeway. That's a show, one of the big events. And I welcome any of you who see this to come and visit me there, and we can talk about these things, or you can try out some stones, or we can do whatever seems right in the moment. But I will be there. I'm looking forward to it very much, and I hope I see some of you there, and I very much hope I see some of you in Vermont this coming June. So thank you very much, and many blessings.